Our long wait is finally over. Lindsey Graham is going to be running for the Republican nomination for the presidency. Or at the very least, he is announcing that he will announce in a few weeks that he is running. This is the weird way that we work in 2015 where people want as much media attention as possible, so they announce their announcement ahead of time. So we're going to give him some of that media coverage, but perhaps not in the way that he might want. We're going to highlight a quote from Lindsey Graham from just this past weekend. He was at the Lincoln Day Dinner, which is a major Iowa Republican Party fundraiser that generally it's expected that everyone who's going to be running for the Republican nomination had better be there. So he was there, and other potential nominees were there as well, and they were talking about the threat of ISIS, and it got a little bit bloodthirsty. So first, here is Senator Lindsey Graham, newly minted as the potential next Republican nominee. He said, if I'm the president of the United States and you're thinking about joining Al-Qaeda or ISIL, anybody thinking about that? I'm not going to call a judge. I'm going to call a drone, and we're going to kill you. Now,
Jesus!
It might be possible that he is talking about foreign-born people who are going to be joining ISIS, in which case it's just pretty bloodthirsty. But he did not make any distinction there about what if an American is considering going to join ISIS. Now, I think in many cases, people watching this video are going to be like, well, I don't care what happens to those people if they're going to be joining the enemy, joining the terrorists. and I understand to some extent, but they still do have constitutional rights. And for him to say ahead of time he's going to do the thing that we criticize Obama on all the time, the outside of the bounds of his constitutional authority killing of American citizens, he says ahead of time, that is what I will continue if I become president.
Well, Johnny, I think the bedrock of our democracy is state killing without judicial process.
Yes.
Isn't that what we're all about in America?
I think that if an analyst says, I read one of his emails and he seems like he's considering it, don't take chances, bomb his house. If other people die as well, you know, you got to crack a few eggs.
I mean, I'm all for court systems and what have you, due process, civil rights, in theory. But if you're thinking about joining ISIS, that all goes out the window.
Yeah.
Thought crimes are important.
Yeah. They're the worst kinds of crimes.
And you know, the thing is about Lindsey Graham, everybody in the GOP field right now running for president, what they're really doing is hoping to get their own show on Fox. Mm-hmm. Whereas Lindsey Graham's hoping to get his own show on Bravo, if you know what I'm talking about.
I don't understand what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't get what you're saying there. He's a fashion
But we've all
enthusiast.
known he was going to run. He just finally came out of the closet and started running, which is nice to see.
I see what you did there.
He's secretive.
Yeah, and it's interesting, by the way. So we had two bits of news that we have today. One, that he says, forget the Constitution. If an American is going to join, we'll just blow him up. And then also, there's Obama coming out and saying that we're going to stop the military from selling some surplus equipment to the police departments. Now, I think that largely many Republicans, especially libertarians, are going to be in favor of that, but not universally. And those are both, if you're a crazed Republican who's worried about Big Brother, the government getting too big and trampling on the rights of Americans, like how could you be in favor of fuck the judge, we're going to call a drone, and we're also going to arm the police to the teeth with rocket launchers, grenade launchers, and things like that? Like, if you are worried about the government run amok, those are not things that you should be interested in.
So you're saying, Johnny, you're picking up on maybe a little bit of a contradiction in Lindsey Graham's
potential contradiction
for public conservatism, small government, and his also public embrace of state killing without any judicial process. Those seem to be in contradiction.
A little bit, yes.
Is what you're saying. So maybe he's pandering to people who want to kill brown people who are different than us. I think that's what maybe that is. And I love the fact, too, because as if Barack Obama isn't already constantly drone bombing ISIS, ISIL, Al-Qaeda, anybody
in Yemen. Which we are.
If you happen to be in Yemen, we're going to bomb you.
Yeah.
Yes, we're doing that all the time. Again, but there's never a lack of bloodlust in the Republican primaries.
Yeah. Yeah, he personally wants government to be as small as possible while still being large enough to kill you without any proof necessary whatsoever. Now, when you talk about bloodthirstiness, now, look, Lindsey Graham is entering, he's not the first person who's going to be running on the Republican side. He's entering a field, and that field is already awash in blood. And so perhaps that's why he's coming out so hardcore. At that same event, by the way, Scott Walker and I believe it's actually Rick Santorum and Rick Perry were also there, all making similarly bloodthirsty comments about ISIS. This is Rick Santorum on the threat from ISIS. I've been very, very clear about how we're going to deal with ISIS. They want to bring back a 7th century version of Islam. So here's my suggestion. We load up our bombers and we bomb them back to the 7th century. Rick Santorum, like I wish that someone would take his advice and would communicate with the U.S. military, send some bombers to Syria and Iraq.
Why don't we start bombing?
Why aren't we doing that already?
When are we going to start bombing in the Middle East? I mean, sure, we've been bombing Iraq for 4 straight presidents.
Yes.
So what?
And we are bombing Syria literally as we stream this video to the internet. The only thing that he could possibly mean is that it's not that we need bombers, it's that we need to load them up with something we are not loading them up with now.
Bombs.
Well, bombs, yes. Perhaps he is implying that we need to use weapons of mass destruction, because we are already loading up bombers with bombs. If not weapons of mass destruction, what could he possibly mean by that?
I thought they already were living in the 7th century. What is, you know what I mean? That's what they always try to say about these guys anyway. And it's nice to see the biggest bloodlust coming from the biggest conservatives. I mean, the biggest Christian conservatives, which just goes to show you religion, the people who claim to follow it most closely, is nothing but hypocritical, contradictory superstition.
Are you implying that it does not actually stop them from
the
sort of base human instinct to kill our enemies and to not consider diplomacy?
That is exactly what I'm saying, Johnny. It does not short-circuit any of those reptilian-brained impulses of revenge, kill somebody different. You know, Jesus came to stop all that stuff. His whole thing was turn the other cheek and love your enemy and treat your neighbor as yourself. And I give you one commandment. That's what Jesus said. I give you one commandment. Love your enemy as yourself. So they don't follow any of that shit, but they want us to not be able to get birth control.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're wrong though. They do love their enemy as themselves. They want to bomb our enemy. They also want drone strikes against Americans. So to some extent, they are consistent, I suppose.
And be careful. I've said it before. Whatever we do to people overseas, we will eventually do to ourselves, our own citizens. We're already torturing our own citizens. We're already torturing our own soldiers. Chelsea Manning.
That's true. That is true. And Scott Walker also with bloodthirsty comments about how we need to take the fight to ISIS. Again, we are currently engaged in a war against ISIS. I don't know, other than sending, so in the case of Santorum, the only way you can up the ante with the bombers is stronger bombs like weapons of mass destruction. In the case of Scott Walker, the only way you can up the ante in terms of taking the fight to them is ground troops. And so if you vote for one of these 3, you cannot pretend that you do not know what you're going to get when they embroil us with ground troops in Iraq and Syria again.
And I just wanted to ask Lindsey Graham, when was the last time ISIS attacked us? They've never attacked us, ever. I mean, our country, our homeland, now that we're using the Russian words, they've never attacked us. Meanwhile, we've been non-stop bombing. You know why there is ISIS? Because we went in and bombed their country called Iraq, and we took them out of power. But and then we said that you guys can't be in the military anymore in Iraq. So we disbanded them. So now there's all these military guys who've been military for their entire lives. And George Bush said, well, we'll just get rid of them. What could possibly go wrong? Well, now we have ISIS. So this is what could possibly go wrong. But still, they're not attacking us. They're attacking us in their country.
Yes.
So when we're in someone else's country killing people, we're not defending America. We're killing people who are defending their country.
Yes. And in the meantime, making it far easier for them to strike Americans if they want to.
Yes.
Bring the Americans to them for them to target.
We're over there. We're protecting America's interest in the Middle East, John. And you know what that interest is? Fucking oil.
Yeah.
Why are we there? Our interest. That's what our interest is.
I'm not interested in that.
Yeah. So we're bombing.
To be fair, I have an electric car, so I'm literally not interested in that. But I would advise as many people as possible to join me in that.
We couldn't be bombing more. I mean, I guess we could always bomb more, but you know, we're bombing Syria now. We've been bombing Iraq since 1990. We've been bombing. We're bombing Gaza. The Israelis. They bomb their occupied territories. We support them.
Yeah.
So how much more bombing could we do of Muslims?
25% more.
Okay.
That is the correct answer coming from Lindsey Graham. Anyway, so that is Lindsey Graham, the new entrant to the Republican nominating process. Enjoy. And we'll have more info as he releases it. Although, of course, he has absolutely no chance whatsoever.